For the last few years, the big race in AI has felt pretty simple, right? Just build one massive, all-knowing model to do, well, everything. But what if that whole idea, that whole approach, is actually a dead end? We're going to dive into a pretty radical shift in how we think about building intelligence.
And just so you know, everything we're about to talk about, it's all made possible by Rooted Layers. They're a publication that digs into AI insights grounded in actual research, so a big thanks to them for their work here.
So let's just rip the Band-Aid off and ask the big question that's kind of shaking things up right now. Is the whole era of the all-powerful God model AI already over? Like before it even really got started?
Yeah, it seems like that dream of one model to rule them all is hitting a bit of a wall. We are watching a huge paradigm shift in how AI is built, and honestly, it's happening a lot faster than I think most people expected.
Okay, so this slide just lays it out perfectly. On one side, you've got the old way, the monolithic model. Think of it as one giant, super expensive God model that's trying to be a genius at absolutely everything. And on the other side, we've got this new idea, the compound system. This is more like a really smart manager who leads a team of smaller, specialized, and way more efficient experts.
And that brings us to the main event here, compound AI systems. The whole thesis is that putting together a team of specialized models isn't just cheaper, it actually gives you better performance than just trying to build one single massive model. It's really a shift from brute force to, intelligent design.
So you're probably wondering, how did we even get here? Well, this wasn't some random overnight thing. Nope, it's actually the logical conclusion of about a 5-year evolution. It's taken AI from being this sort of isolated brain in a jar to a really sophisticated project manager.
And that evolution really happened in 3 clear phases. First, phase 1. You had chain of thought. This is where models basically learned to think step by step before spitting out an answer. Then came phase 2, where they kind of grew arms and legs, right? They learned to use external tools like a calculator or a search engine. And that brings us to today, phase 3. The model is no longer just a thinker or a tool user, it's the manager, delegating tasks to the perfect specialist for that specific job.
Okay, so why is this team approach winning out? I mean, what's the big deal? Well, it really just boils down to the fact that simply making models bigger and bigger has some serious limitations.
And this quote from Berkeley's AI Research Lab, this is basically the manifesto for this whole new way of thinking. It just nails the law of diminishing returns. Making a model 10 times bigger does not make it 10 times smarter. But putting together a system of specialized models, whoa, that can give you way more than a 10x improvement in performance for your money.
So this team approach really wins for 2 big reasons. First, specialization. It's just common sense, right? You don't use a giant sledgehammer to crack a tiny nut. You use a small, cheap, fast model for a simple task. But the second reason, this might be the real game changer. It's runtime error correction. If one of the specialist models messes up, the manager can actually see that, stop it, and send the task to someone else. A system that can catch its own mistakes, well, that's just fundamentally smarter than any one single part of it could ever be.
So what we're looking at is a future that's way more modular. It's not about one big brain anymore. It's about having these gigantic stable knowledge bases, then these tiny super fast reasoning models, and a bunch of deterministic reliable tools that just get the job done.
Okay, but let's be real. This new world isn't some perfect paradise. To be fair, we have to talk about the huge unsolved problems that are stopping these compound systems from just completely taking over. And trust me, these are the kinds of problems that keep engineers up at night.
So here are 4 of the absolute biggest roadblocks. First, recursive orchestration. I mean, how do you manage a manager who's managing other managers? It gets complicated fast. Then there's tool synthesis. How can an AI just create a new tool it needs right there on the spot? Third, continual learning. How does the system adapt when you add new tools without having to retrain the whole thing from scratch? And of course, the big one, formal verification. How do you provide a 100% rock-solid safety guarantee? We're not there yet.
And I gotta say, this one is my favorite, the tool synthesis paradox. Think about it. For an AI to build and test a new tool, it has to know what the correct output should be. But if it already knows the correct output, why did it need to build the tool in the first place? It's this perfect little catch-22, and it's a real head-scratcher for researchers.
All right, so enough with the theory. Let's get down to the brass tacks, the brutal reality of production. What happens when you actually try to launch one of these super complex systems out into the real world? This is where the rubber really meets the road. Just look at this number,
$26,500 a month. Here's the deal. With a compound system, your overall speed is only as fast as all your little parts working together. If just one of those tools is slow, even just once in a while, it creates what's called tail latency. And that tiny percentage of users having a bad experience can cost a business a ton of money. Complexity, it turns out, has a very real price tag.
And the financial risk? Oh, it doesn't stop there. Check this out. A 50,000x potential return on investment for an attacker. Here's how it works. They can send a really simple query that costs them like a penny. But that query is designed to trigger a super complex, super expensive chain of events on your system that ends up costing you $500. It's called a denial of wallet attack, and it is a massive, massive security hole.
So with all these risks, how do you even know if this kind of system is right for you? Well, here's a super practical checklist. Think of them as 4 gates you have to get through. The volume gate. Are you getting at least 75,000 queries a month? The team gate. Do you have at least 3 machine learning engineers who can handle this complexity? The latency gate. Can your app handle responses that might take over 2 seconds? And finally, the stability gate. Are the tools you're using stable and reliable? If you answer no to any of these, honestly, you're probably better off sticking with a simpler, monolithic model for now.
And this chart just makes the business case crystal clear. Look, at low volumes, like 10,000 queries a month, the overhead of managing a complex system means you're actually losing money. A simple monolith would be way cheaper. The break-even point, where it starts to make financial sense, is right around that 75,000 query mark. Anything less than that, stick with the old way. This whole approach, it really only pays off at scale.
So, at the end of the day, it all boils down to this one fundamental choice. A choice that basically every engineer and every company working with AI has to make right now.
And here it is. You have to choose your poison. With the old school God model, your biggest fear is hallucination, right? The model just confidently making stuff up. But with a new compound system, your fear is system complexity. The risk isn't that the brain is wrong, it's that one of the dozens of little moving parts in your complicated machine just breaks. There's no magic bullet here, just a different set of problems you have to be willing to tackle. Which kind of leaves us with this one last big thought. Maybe our whole idea of what a superintelligence looks like has been wrong all along. Maybe the future of AI isn't about building one single giant mind. Maybe it's about getting really, really good at building and managing an incredible team.